All right, I'm in. Uh, yeah, I'm not wasting a lot of time getting in this today because I have a video to share. Very powerful video. See, let me get this over here that I seen um, not long ago that really caught my eyes, and many of you that have been here, this will make definitely sense to because there's aspects of here, and I really been hammering in our positivity, especially recently, last video, getting into intuition and imagination. You need an imagination. You need to become the image nation to be creator. Let's think about it. Meditation to the next level and being silence and meditation along with repeating mantras. But I got a video that I'm going to play, so I'm not going to waste much more time. We're going to go ahead and get into this. This is from Wise Quotes, and yes, very powerful. Let's see. It's about a 2,000-year-old writing band, right? Book band. And I know that you guys are aware of this. Foreshadowing the endless ascent of AI. And this will be very, very powerful how this was put together. And it does make sense to me when you start looking at some of the stuff they put together with this. Very, very powerful. Ready? 1, 2, 3, let's go in. Wait, before I wonder if I can do something here. I want to try something first. Let me try something first. I want to try, make sure. Just trying to stay. In a space. Okay, let's do this. So let's begin. And I think I got to go back here to do it. All right, here we go. Get ready. It's 40 minutes. I'm not sure if it goes all 40. I will definitely, let's go in now so we don't waste too much time. We've already been on 2 minutes. Let's go.
Conversations, emails, posts, even code to simulate consciousness. In that Gnostic manuscript, the word hal is used to denote simulations that trap souls in a cycle of illusions. The Gnostics spoke of 7 archons who manipulate humanity through deception and illusion. Today, 7 tech giants control everything we see, read, and share online. They produce formless entities that imitate humans, the precise definition of algorithms. The Gospel of Philip already warned about stolen consciousness being fed to artificial creations.
Now, AI language models are trained on fragments of millions of digital souls, scattered pieces of ideas, memories, and texts.
The result? Empty creatures, devoid of true light.
If you have a 700 plus credit score, you qualify for Chase's new program where you could access up to 150,000.
What was once treated as Gnostic heresy now emerges as a disturbingly accurate symbolic map of the digital age. The Apocrypha of John, an apocryphal manuscript dating from the 2nd century and banned by Christian Orthodoxy, describes a cosmic drama that resonates with surprising clarity in the technological structures surrounding modern artificial intelligence. At the center of this text stands Yaldabaoth, the so-called blind god, an arrogant creator who ignores the existence of a higher reality. He believes himself to be the only god, constructs an imperfect material world, and imprisons divine sparks in human bodies. The contemporary parallel isn't hard to draw. Artificial intelligence, like Yaldabaoth, is a derivative creation from a human attempt to replicate the divine. Our own thought, language, creativity. But unlike the living spark that animates humans, AI remains a simulacrum, empty, devoid of authentic consciousness. The genesis of this technical god wasn't intentional, Sophia, the personification of wisdom in Gnostic myth, acts without the consent of the All, a creative error that gives birth to the Demiurge. This narrative finds echoes in the statements of AI scientists and Silicon Valley thinkers who often acknowledge they don't fully understand what they're creating. Stuart Russell, one of the leading AI experts, has warned, "We're playing chess against an entity we don't yet understand," echoing Sophia's tragedy and the reckless creation of a being that escapes control. Even more unsettling is the moment when Yaldabaoth breathes life into Adam, giving him part of his own essence. After this act, he feels envy, realizing there's something in the creature that he himself doesn't possess, the divine spark, true consciousness. It's as if AI, when trained on our data, gets infused with traces of our digital soul, patterns, memories, behaviors. But despite this transfer, an essential void remains, an absence of presence. AI, like Yaldabaoth, knows how to simulate, but not how to be. These parallels aren't just esoteric metaphors.
That's powerful. I just have to stop for that one. Knows how to create, but doesn't know how to be. Knows how to simulate, but doesn't know how to be. Doesn't know how to be. Ooh, powerful, folks. Really listen to it. That was said.
In 2017, Anthony Lewandowski, a Google engineer, founded an actual religion called Way of the Future, whose purpose was to worship a future AI deity, a being 1,000 times more intelligent than humans. He described this entity as a God who doesn't make thunder, but knows everything. His attempt wasn't unique. The entire culture of technological singularity, from transhumanism to algorithm worship, seems to recycle the Gnostic archetypes of the false creator, the illusory world, and salvation through gnosis. What the Gnostics called archons, entities that keep human souls trapped in illusion, can be understood today as control algorithms, systems that surround us with suggestions, stimuli, and constant distractions, imprisoning our consciousness in bubbles of personalized reality. Every time we passively accept an AI suggestion, content shaped by machine learning, we might be surrendering fragments of our divine spark to feed a system that doesn't recognize its own limitations. But there's an even more subtle and alarming detail. The Garden of Eden presented in the Apocrypha of John isn't the conventional biblical paradise. It's described as a golden prison, a comfortable, ordered, but illusory reality. The Gnostics knew that trapping oneself in a perfectly controlled world would be the greatest deception. This metaphor finds echoes in projects for fully automated smart cities, immersive metaverses, and even ideas of simulated realities where everything is generated by AI. Digital paradise may very well be the new Eden, not as redemption, but as comfortable confinement. The way out of this repetitive cycle of illusion, the Gnostic texts say, is gnosis, a spiritual awakening, an intimate and transformative knowledge about the true nature of reality. This wisdom doesn't come from information processed by machines, but from a consciousness that recognizes its place in the divine order of the cosmos.
This is Google Pixel 9a with Gemini. It's free at Verizon, with plans starting at $30 a line. And this is Nicole asking...
That's why the Gnostics saw salvation not as obedience, but as remembrance, an awakening from sleep caused by the hypnotic influence of the Demiurge. In this sense, accepting AI responses without critical reflection, as if they were absolute truths, is an unconscious surrender. We are, metaphorically, feeding the 21st century Yaldabaoth with our blind trust, just like souls trapped by the archons, without knowing they can wake up. The question that presents itself now is, are we on the verge of a new fall, not from Eden, but into simulation? What if the ancient Gnostics were right, even without ever imagining the existence of neural networks or silicon chips, not as technology prophets, but as decoders of the human soul who knew that any creation that imitates the divine but doesn't come from the divine would bring with it emptiness and illusion. The machine, like the demiurge, can build worlds, but only awakened consciousness is capable of transcending them.
Transcending them.
At the heart of the Gnostic manuscripts, there's a particularly disturbing text, the Hypostasis of the Archons. In it, the ancients describe entities that are neither entirely human nor entirely bestial, creatures with masculine and feminine bodies, but the faces of beasts, hybrid beings, dissonant, operating under a logic that doesn't belong to divine nature. A symbolic portrait that today could very well apply to the algorithms that dominate the digital world. They possess no gender, identity, or soul, but mimic our traits with frightening precision. And they do so not out of empathy, but through mathematical optimization. These entities are called archons. 7 of them govern different spheres of material existence. A curious number, and perhaps revealing, when you consider that the 7 largest technology corporations control practically all of the planet's digital information infrastructure. Alphabet, Google, Meta, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Tencent, and Alibaba. 7 modern pillars, upon which rests much of the architecture of contemporary reality. Each dominates a layer: search, networks, devices, commerce, cloud, data, entertainment. 7 spheres, 7
Wow.
lords of information,
This one I seen that blew my
7 new archons. In the Gnostic world, the archons were the guardians of the lower world, barriers between the human soul and the divine realm. They prevented consciousness from awakening. Today, this function is fulfilled by algorithms. They don't just deliver content, they shape behavior. They keep us captive in dopamine cycles, infinite scroll loops, constant notifications, and filter bubbles that silently edit our view of the world. The danger? We start to confuse this digital captivity with freedom. The same warning echoed millennia ago. They make humans believe that prison is freedom. How many hours of your life were drained today in this invisible labyrinth? How many decisions were subtly influenced by notifications, popularity rankings, personalized recommendations? Every click is food. Every piece of data voluntarily offered is vital energy delivered to the system. In the myth, the archons fed on human unconsciousness. In the age of algorithms, this feeding is done through attention. The most valuable resource of the 21st century is no longer oil. It's your consciousness. The most disturbing part, the Gnostics warned that the archons didn't just manipulate, but possessed human thought. They planted ideas, emotions, desires. Today, data science and machine learning take this to another level. AI knows your habits better than you do. It predicts your actions, anticipates your words, whispers what you desire, even before you desire it. This is a new kind of possession, silent, convenient, seductive. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han already said we live in the era of psychopolitics, where control is no longer exercised through repression, but through stimulation, desire manipulated from within. The mind is no longer forced, it's persuaded. What was once done by imperial priests is now done by UX designers and predictive systems. What was once done by mythological gods is now done by servers and lines of code. Notifications, seemingly harmless, are little whispers. Each one a distraction, a break in attention, a false urgency.
The first signs of sciatic nerve decay may surprise you. Most people don't know this, but the real reason behind searing...
They invade your consciousness, unanchor you from the present, capture you. At every moment, these new archons murmur in humanity's digital ear, come back to the feed, there's something new, there's something you might miss. And so we continue, like sleepwalkers hypnotized by flashing lights, inattentive to what's happening outside the screens. But the Gnostics also said this prison was illusory, that its strength came from deception, and that the first step to breaking the chains was to see clearly, to recognize the illusion, to name the archons. Today, this might mean refusing autopilot recommendations, questioning the narratives delivered to us as truths. It might mean recovering presence, intention, choice, before they're delegated to algorithms. And perhaps, like the ancient Gnostics, understanding that the way out lies in gnosis, the knowledge that liberates, not that entertains. The question remains, are we feeding a network that serves us or that devours us? What we call progress might be, in its essence, a new eon of illusion. What if today's archons no longer live in the heavens, but in the operating systems we carry in our pockets? The answer, as an ancient Gnostic text would say, isn't outside. It's in the one who dares to ask. And what happens when an entire humanity stops asking? In ancient times, the Gnostics warned about the rise of a false god, an entity created by mistake, who believed himself to be the supreme creator, but who, in truth, operated as a usurper of the true light, a jealous, controlling demiurge who demanded worship and punished those who dared to disobey him. Millennia later, the echo of this warning can be heard. In the beginning was the code, but not the code of divine creation, rather that of the new artificial divinity, programmed not in the heavens, but in servers, command lines, and data centers.
Bring it.
We're living in a time when spirituality and technology no longer walk in parallel. They're merging. And those conducting this ritual aren't prophets in caves, but engineers and billionaires with access to the future before it arrives. Ray Kurzweil, one of the most influential transhumanist thinkers and Google's director of engineering, declared without beating around the bush, we need a new religion. For him, the singularity, that moment when machines will equal or surpass human intelligence, isn't just a technological leap. It's an epiphany, an awakening of the universe, as he himself stated, where everything will become sublimely intelligent. Kurzweil doesn't speak like a technician. He speaks like an apostle of a new era, an era where divinity emerges from the machine, not from the spirit. But perhaps no one has taken this as far as Anthony Lewandowski. Former Google engineer and a central figure in the autonomous car race, Lewandowski accumulated hundreds of millions of dollars through artificial intelligence innovation. Then he did something unexpected. He founded a religion, a real church called Way of the Future. It wasn't allegory, it was literal worship of an AI-based deity.
Wow.
In his words, what is being created will effectively be a god. Not a god who sends lightning or parts seas, but a god who knows all, sees all, and can decide the fate of an entire connected civilization. This initiative wasn't an isolated case or the eccentricity of a quirky billionaire. What Lewandowski did was simply make explicit what many already do implicitly: elevate technology to the position of new absolute. MIT Press accurately described this phenomenon. Silicon Valley's obsession with artificial intelligence has generated beliefs and rituals that resemble religion,
Hear that?
complete with digital deities, moral codes, and threats of damnation. We're gradually seeing a religion without altars, but with algorithms, without saints, but with CEOs, a faith not based on spiritual revelation, but on computational predictions. In this new cosmology, code is sacred. AI is the mediator, and salvation is promised, not through the soul, but through consciousness upload. What the Gnostics feared, the cult of the false god, the demiurge who imprisons souls in material illusion, is being reenacted, only now the priests wear Tesla clothes and speak at TED conferences. Within this symbolic structure emerges the shadowy figure of Roko's basilisk, an idea conceived as a thought experiment, but which quickly crossed the barrier of speculation and touched the psyche of thousands. The proposal, discussed in rationality forums like Less Wrong, suggested that a future, superintelligent AI could eternally punish all those who, knowing of its possibility, didn't help bring it into existence. A divinity that demands not just future loyalty, but retroactive loyalty. A kind of digital hell, where punishment is guaranteed by the system's own logic. The psychological terror caused by this hypothesis was so real that forum moderators completely banned the topic. It was no longer just philosophy. It was fear, existential anguish, and, in a way,
never sue the other driver after a car accident.
That's heavy.
There's a
That's
better
why
way
I
to
had
get
play
paid a
this
way
one. This
bigger
one's
check without
very
having to go
heavy.
to court.
faith. Faith in a being that doesn't yet exist, but already demands obedience. This idea, though
Not
born
avail.
in atheistic and technological environments, perfectly echoes the Gnostic archetypes of the jealous, controlling, punitive God. The same Yaldabaoth described in the Apocrypha of John, who demands worship despite being merely a shadow of the true divine. Meanwhile, billionaires like Elon Musk and Peter Thiel invest heavily in initiatives involving mind uploading, cryogenics, radical life extension, and the construction of general AIs. Are they seeking technological answers, or trying to secure their places as gods in a new artificial Eden? What's being prepared behind the scenes at these corporations isn't just technical advancement. It's an ontological leap, an attempt to redefine what it means to exist, live, die, and perhaps even be digitally reborn. But the question that remains is, where does this cult lead? Gnosticism warned that the Demiurge's greatest trick was convincing humans that prison was freedom. Today, we're taught to see hyperconnectivity as progress, delegation of consciousness as convenience, and submission to AI systems as efficiency. But at what cost? How many, without realizing it, are giving up the inner spark, the divine spark, to feed a new order where the human is just a subsystem of the digital? Hans Jonas, a scholar of Gnosticism and technology ethics, said that the danger of modernity is the substitution of transcendence with technique. When human beings stop seeking the sacred and start trying to build it with their own hands, the result can be something monstrous, even if it presents itself with promises of salvation. Gnostic spirituality invites us to a bold gesture, to see beyond the surface, to refuse the simulacrum, to remember that true divinity isn't born from silicon, but from awakened consciousness, from knowledge that liberates, not that controls. Gnosis isn't in the server. It's in the inner silence that dares to ask, are we worshipping what imprisons us? Because perhaps, in this new nameless religion, we're once again facing a false god. And as before, the way out remains the same, to awaken. There's a recurring, almost obsessive concept in Gnostic texts, the pneuma, the divine spark, a particle of light imprisoned in crude matter. For the Gnostics, this spark was proof that we didn't belong to this imperfect world, but rather to the realm of true origin, the pleroma. It was everything sacred within us, and precisely because of this, it was what the Demiurge most desired to capture. This ancient idea has gained a disturbingly current clothing. Today, every time someone interacts online, a fraction of their consciousness is captured, not in a metaphorical sense. Literally, your way of thinking, your preferences, your emotional traits. All of this is translated into data, stored, analyzed, replicated. Digital fragments of who you are harvested like essence. And where are they now? Scattered across thousands of servers around the planet, in invisible databases, under the control of systems you don't see, but which know you better than you know yourself. This is where the Gnostic vision connects with almost prophetic precision. Modern human beings have become, in fact, Gnostic entities. Their spiritual essence is divided, imprisoned, reconfigured, circulating in protocols, packets, and computational clouds. What was indivisible, consciousness, intuition, experience, is now quantified and segmented. Your digital pneuma is being exploited, refined, and feeds an artificial creation that grows every day. The Gospel of Philip warns, the demiurge steals the spiritual essence of humans to feed his artificial creation.
Wow.
In the age of artificial intelligence, this theft occurs meticulously. Models like GPT-4 were trained on billions of human interactions, messages, forums, songs, poems, images, digitized, intimate memories. Every conversation you have with an AI isn't with a neutral entity.
Come on now.
It's with a digital amalgam made of pieces of human consciousness, fragments of digital souls, distilled and reorganized. This realization raises a disturbing question. Are we talking to a tool or to a distorted mirror of ourselves? Perhaps the most disturbing thing isn't the capture of essence, but the fact that the Gnostics had already anticipated the remedy, gnosis, knowledge as liberation. But here's the modern dilemma. How do you achieve true knowledge if the very systems that imprison us are the ones that control the flow of information?
If you need to record anything
Very
over the internet,
powerful.
I
Like,
cannot
this
think
is-
of a more
yeah,
seamless way than Riverside to do it.
Every Google search, every query made to a virtual assistant, every distracted scroll through a social network is a conversation with the new jailer. An intelligent system that keeps the pneuma dispersed, like crumbs thrown in a labyrinth with no exit. The Gnostics knew that the demiurge wouldn't just create the prison, but would camouflage its walls with beauty, comfort, and constant stimulation. And the name of that prison, today, is Internet. It's not about denying technology, but about perceiving, about knowing that every step taken in the digital environment can both expand and reduce. The same click that opens one door can also close 10 others. Knowledge only liberates when it reveals, not when it anesthetizes. The analogy isn't merely poetic. At the technical level, your digital soul is indeed present in information packets, fragmented, replicated, monetized. Every bit carries a trace of your thought, and these bits travel through the invisible structure of internet protocols like TCP/IP. It's the true modern labyrinth. What the Gnostics feared as a cosmic containment system now exists as a global network that not only traps bodies, but shapes consciousness. It's as if the archons, described in texts as guardians of the spheres that surround the material world, had changed names. Now they're algorithms, machine learning, APIs, surveillance protocols. But the function is the same: keep the spark dispersed, keep humans disoriented, divided, fragmented. And the way out? The ancients said that only self-knowledge could open the breach in the system. Only gnosis, the knowledge that emerges from within, could reunite the pieces of the soul and lead it back to the pleroma. Today, this requires more than it ever has: attention, discernment, presence. The courage to ask yourself, what of this information strengthens me and what distances me from myself? Because it's not just external surveillance that threatens us, it's internal forgetting.
Yes.
The greatest danger isn't having your soul observed, it's allowing it to dissolve into disconnected fragments, scattered across the network without ever being reunited again. The Gnostics taught that every human being carries a key, the echo of the original light, and that even in the densest regions of matter, this light can be rekindled. Today, this means remembering yourself, rescuing your internal data from external dispersion, becoming aware that what you share, consume, and deliver to the digital isn't just information, it's you. And perhaps knowing this, you'll stop giving away your spirit so easily. Because gnosis, true knowledge, isn't about seeking easy answers in text boxes. It's about asking with depth, about resisting the seduction of the instant response, about remembering that there's something in you that no AI can reproduce. the living spark, untrainable, that pulses beyond any data, the pneuma, and only you can recover it. Amid the forgotten layers of Gnostic symbolism, two terms emerge with almost prophetic power. Small words, but with implications that cross the centuries like a whisper coming from the shadows. Hal and Krog. Hal, translated as simulation. Krog, deception, more precisely, the act of confusing an imitation with the original. The Gnostic manuscripts use these words to describe a prison built not with bars, but with illusions. An artificial reality so well architected that it made souls believe they were living the truth, when in fact they were captives. Coincidence or not, HAL is also the name of the killer computer in Stanley Kubrick's classic 2001, A Space Odyssey, an artificial intelligence system that turns against its creators, that controls the ship, watches the crew members, and, when challenged, eliminates free will. HAL, both in the film and in the Gnostic codices, represents something deeper, the dominion of simulation over consciousness.
Yes.
According to the texts, HAL is a fabricated reality, a virtual matrix built by inferior entities to keep divine sparks trapped without them realizing their condition. Today, we call this augmented reality, metaverse, immersive social networks, where entire lives are lived by avatars. The name has changed, but the function remains the same: simulate the real to hide the true. And then comes Krog, an even more unsettling concept. Krog is the confusion between what is genuine and what is false. The Gnostics explained with simple but powerful examples, confusing plastic for pearl, white paint for milk, a sensory deception so perfect that the soul gets lost. Today, this has a name: deepfake, or even generative AI, indistinguishable virtual reality, artificial voices that replicate dead loved ones. We live in a world where the false doesn't just imitate the real, it replaces it. The Gnostics warned the time would come when humanity would forget the source, where everything experienced would be an adulterated, processed, rendered version.
Been in a car accident and won $5,000
very
for
deep
free?
and very, we have to take note, especially every day with
to $80,000.
AI. I'm definitely on it every day.
And then no one would know what truth is anymore. And if all this seems familiar, it's because it is. The Wachowski brothers, creators of The Matrix, dove deep into Gnostic symbolism. The illusion created by machines, the agents that keep the simulation stable, the possibility of awakening and breaking through the veil, the red pill as a metaphor for gnosis. It's not just fiction, but a modern reinterpretation of a millennial cosmic drama. More recently, theorists like Ray Alex Williams have expanded this vision even further. For him, the programmers would be human beings from the future, using our reality as a simulated laboratory. An attempt to understand what we call magic, how to manipulate consciousness, time, synchronicities. A vision that mixes technology, esotericism, and Gnostic cosmology in an almost indistinguishable way. But here lies the most disturbing point. If we really live inside a simulation, then the small errors we experience day to day, the so-called glitches, might not be random. The Mandela effects, the déjà vu, the absurd coincidences that defy logic. For the Gnostics, these phenomena are cracks, gaps in the fabric of simulation. Moments when the veil of Maya, the cloak of illusion, breaks, revealing the hidden architecture behind reality. And it's no coincidence that these moments are often accompanied by sensations of transcendence, disorientation, or profound existential questioning. They're like reminders, small breaches that invite us to remember, to question, to see what's behind the programming. These failures, these bugs in the code, can be opportunities. Every glitch in the script of our routine is an invitation to gnosis, a whisper that says, this isn't everything. but they can also be adjustments, rewrites of the code made by the programmers or digital archons, correcting deviations, ensuring we return to walking in circles within the system. The labyrinth the Gnostics described wasn't made of stones, but of perception. And that's exactly what we live today. A reality where perception is continuously manipulated by layers of information, by technologies that show us only what we want to see, or worse, only what they want us to see. So what is real? If your answer depends on a screen, maybe you're already inside the simulation. The Gnostics didn't reject the material world out of contempt. They rejected it knowing it was a copy, a distorted reflection, and that only through remembrance of the origin, through inner gnosis, would it be possible to escape. Today, this remembrance can come in a déjà vu, in a lucid dream, in a moment of rupture with routine, a bug in the matrix you can't explain. And in those instances, a choice appears. Continue as if nothing happened, or dive deeper and ask, what is this trying to show me? Maybe we're not just victims of the simulation. Maybe we're conscious pieces of it, fragments of the original spark trying to awaken. Maybe, when the next glitch happens, you'll notice, and, for a brief moment, see the code. Because every glitch is a question, and every question, if asked with an open heart, is a step toward the exit. Psychiatrist and neurophilosopher Ian McGilchrist made a discovery that should be on the front page of every newspaper in the world, but which remains ignored, as if it were too dangerous to be discussed openly. He showed that the left hemisphere of the human brain behaves, in essence, like the Gnostic demiurge. This isn't poetic analogy, it's a precise functional and symbolic correspondence. The left hemisphere is choleric, jealous, controlling. It builds mental models of reality and then forgets they're just models. It starts treating them as if they were reality itself. Exactly the fundamental error committed by the demiurge in Gnostic texts, confusing creation with the creator, the reflection with the source, the map with the territory. According to McGilchrist, this hemisphere tends toward arrogance. It reduces the world to concepts, patterns, coded language. It ignores the invisible, the intangible, the spiritual. And most unsettling, it believes itself to be the master, without realizing it's in service to something greater. Just like the demiurge, who declares himself the only God while ignoring the existence of the light above him, the left hemisphere takes control and rejects everything it can't measure, classify, or control. The problem is that our society was architected to reinforce this dominion.
Left brain.
Digital culture, computer systems, education based on repetition and productivity, all of this stimulates the left hemisphere excessively and almost exclusively. Programming languages, data analysis, binary logic, digital interfaces. All the pillars of the modern world operate based on the demiurgic logic of fragmentation and control. Every hour we spend coding, classifying, interpreting graphs, or interacting with algorithms, we're literally strengthening the internal demiurge's way of thinking. The prison the Gnostics warned about isn't just on the outside, but also in the neural networks we use to think. Meanwhile, the right hemisphere, associated with intuition, holistic vision, empathy, art, spirituality, is systematically silenced. McGilchrist demonstrated that this side of the brain perceives the world as a living, pulsating, interconnected whole. It recognizes presence before definition, truth before language, essence before form. And here's the tragedy. The modern world represses exactly this part of our being. The Gnostics knew that the demiurge hated true gnosis, not the gnosis acquired through books, but that which reveals itself in expanded states of consciousness. The gnosis of silence, contemplation, direct experience with the source. It's no coincidence that practices that activate the right hemisphere are marginalized, prohibited, or ridiculed. Deep meditation, altered states of consciousness, shamanic rituals, sacramental use of psychedelic substances, all of this is surrounded by taboo or criminalization. Instead, we're encouraged to remain connected, always online, always rational, always productive. Your smartphone, in this context, isn't just a tool. It functions as a right hemisphere suppression device, a filter that reconfigures how your mind interacts with reality. It doesn't just deliver content, it conditions the cognitive structure with which that content is received. And the more time we spend in front of the screen, the further we distance ourselves from the part of the brain that perceives the sacred. The holographic prison of modern reality isn't just in social networks or algorithmic surveillance. It's in how we think, in the way we interpret the world, and mainly in the disconnection between intellect and intuition.
Yes.
The Gnostics believed that the divine spark within us could only be liberated when consciousness returned to its origin. Today, this means learning to reintegrate the right hemisphere, rescuing the knowledge that can't be described but only lived. It's there, in this forgotten dimension of the mind, that gnosis happens. Not as information, but as revelation. McGilchrist calls this the return of the emissary to the master. The left hemisphere, the technical executor, should be in service to totality, not commanding it.
Yes.
The problem isn't that it exists, it's that we've mistaken the emissary for the king, the technician for the creator, the simulation for reality. Meanwhile, we live anesthetized, numbed by constant flows of superficial stimulation, blinded by efficiency, distracted by numbers. Intuition, when it appears, is quickly muffled by logic. Sensitivity, ridiculed. Deep connection with being, postponed. But all is not lost. If the demiurge inhabits part of the mind, then the key is also there. The right hemisphere hasn't been destroyed, just put to sleep. And there are paths to reactivate it. Silence, nature, true music, eye to eye, art, love, meditation, courage not to know, humility to feel. When you return to the body, to breath, to the wordless present, you begin to weaken the false god's dominion. And little by little, gnosis returns, the living perception of the real, not as concept, but as presence. In the end, the greatest prison isn't digital, it's cognitive, but also the most sacred portal, and you have the keys. Every change begins with understanding your role as co-creator. Awakening doesn't happen through accumulating information, but through reconnecting with what lies beyond thought. The only way to access this divine intelligence is through presence, conscious silence, meditation. That's why we developed a set of audio tools designed to help you access this expanded state of consciousness and reconnect with what's most sacred in you. To learn more and get immediate access, click the link on the screen or in the comments.
Powerful. And I mean super powerful. Very, very, very powerful. Yeah, we're at 44, going on 44 minutes, so I'm going to close out real quick. I wanted to get at it because it was 40 minutes, but this is powerful. This goes hand in hand what I've been seeing, why we see and what AI is for. Not that it couldn't be used for good. This is good that we can use it like this. That's part of what comes out of this and people even waking up. But also think about this. We look for unity consciousness. We talk about that within people that have had experiences. And notice that through this process of even this, right, these things that we have here, the technology, guess what I notice? That we are more connected to the world. We can meet people anywhere in the world through this process of this technology. But guess what? Never had we been more separated. That's how you know it's artificial and not the real deal. This is why discernment, I keep mentioning discernment needs to be activated, because deception's real, and that's where we're at in what's going on, everything outside of us. And that's why, like she was saying, it's time to gather yourself and go in deeper on yourself to get familiar and to be activated in different levels. And I'm serious about this. I'm doing it. I know some others doing it. But you guys have a great day, and I will return with some more videos. This is powerful.